This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, you are listening to the Daily English Premier League podcast, and we have just seen the unprecedented, the unpredictable, something that we did not think would happen before the season began. Spurs, Tottenham Hotspur, you know, that team that hasn't won anything in ages. They won a trophy. And it was against Manchester United, which makes it even better. And currently joining me, who's trying not to make eye contact with me at the moment, Michal Czarniecki and Victor and Marcus as well joining me. Marcus, I know you enjoyed this as well as a Liverpool fan, seeing Manchester United suffer even more. But I'll come to Michal first, because I think he's the one that needs to let off the most steam. What did you see tonight, Michal, from a Manchester United perspective?
What I saw tonight was how dreams die. Because let's face it, Man United losing this final, yes, and you can laugh all you want, but when we boil down to the facts and hard numbers, that loss has just cost us way more than just some pride. Okay, we are talking about billions of pounds that this club, of debt that this club has got, and it's going to be what previously seemed like a mission impossible for Man United to somehow get some of that debt out of their books. It now seems even more like mission impossible. And football-wise, I think that right now Man United fans, I really think that they underestimate how well Tottenham played this final, and how Ange Postecoglou's I would say tactical master, this craft just shone through. I guess that's the end of Man United as we know it. I'm sorry, but I just cannot find literally any positives for the future for this club. And that is a super sad thing to say after so many years of legacy and so many years of history. I don't know, Victor, please help me out, mate, because I'm just...
Let's go on, Victor.
I don't know. First thing first, I'm wearing a 1994 Eric Cantona jersey, and I was thinking to just wear something else for tonight or tomorrow, but really heartbreaking. I did not expect it's going to hit me this hard, because I got used to all this crap for the last 10 years. So it's pretty painful, to be honest with you. I expected this game to go exactly how Liverpool beat Spurs in the final, just like 1 or 2-0 hard-fought win, and it was the opposite. It was the Tottenham who won the game that way. So we were missing a lot of quality. You can see. I was hoping we're gonna have a hero tonight, but it just didn't happen.
By the way, Victor, sorry. Do
you
recognize this shirt? Sorry, do you recognize this shirt? Since we're talking shirts, What is this shirt? What is it?
Oh,
Europa League jersey.
2021. No, 2021.
2021.
Villarreal, Gdańsk.
Yeah.
David De Gea missing the penalty. Yeah, we've been there. We've been there before.
Wow. Yeah, I remember Alberto Moreno after that match. That was quite enjoyable to me. I thought you were referring to 2017, the last time Manchester United won the Europa League. Yeah, of course, Man United won the FA Cup only last year with Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho scoring in the final. The good old days of Erik ten Hag. The last time Spurs won a trophy before tonight, or last night as you're listening to this, was 2008. That was the League Cup final. But this is actually Spurs'. It was a decent squad, but this is Spurs' 4th European trophy. it's actually incredible. But you go back to the years, the last century, they were winning stuff in, for example, the 1984 UEFA Cup final. I don't know the squads. I don't know the managers. That you'd have to ask a Spurs fan. That I'm just basing this off the zero research I did before this. I do apologise. But Marcus, how big is this for Spurs? Because this has been the centre of every cruel joke aimed at Spurs fans for 17 years. You haven't won a trophy since 2008. You haven't won a trophy since this and that. That comes to an end now.
Yeah, and not just the trophy. I think, it's not just been the butt of many football jokes. It's been the subject of the very early episodes of this very podcast. Spurs doing Spurs things. It's what we've become used to. They'll get so far and then they'll fall at the last hurdle. So to see them actually cross the line, I'm actually quite speechless. There's so much to celebrate for these guys here. We talked a bit before we hit record about the Daniel Levy being on the pitch and the Levy out protests, and I did a solo podcast about the actual detail of their manifesto. Whether that will change Spurs fans' minds or if they're still on that bandwagon of we don't need Daniel Levy in that front role is yet to be decided. Feel great for Ange. He's been vindicated after a really tough season. He said all along, I always win a trophy in my second season. But also in terms of kind of what I was expecting today, I think one of the things that we've said about Ange Postecoglou's tactics has been, they like to play a certain way and they don't adapt. And I did not see Spurs sitting as deep as they did for this entire game and having very much a game plan, because that first half you really thought United were going to break them down. I thought it would be at least 1-0 to Man United going in, and they nicked a goal with some good movement from Brennan Johnson and defended for their lives. If you're watching that as a neutral, you're kind of going, well, this was an okay game. But actually, as it got towards the end and the whistle was getting closer and closer, you started to see a real passion and a real fight. Players really wanted to see this over the line, and they weren't going to let that story be written again. That story of, we're Spurs and this is what we do. And they, I'm really pleased for Ange, for Spurs, for Son. They can talk about Harry Kane not winning a European trophy. I'm sure that will come up. So yeah, and weirdly, just tiny little bit of me as a Liverpool fan felt quite sorry for United. I thought Maguire had a decent game, better than decent game. I think he had a great game. I thought Shaw was really good. Onana started, the game looking like he was going to be reliable. And yeah, I don't know what happened, but I do believe there was a real tactical masterclass from Ange there as well.
Well, we'll talk more about the match soon. But I just want to look back at the last Spurs team that won a UEFA Cup, as it was called then, now obviously the Europa League. If you know any of the players in the squad, Marcus, would you know any of them?
Is Glenn Hoddle in that squad?
Glenn Hoddle was not in that squad.
Ozzy Ardiles?
Ozzy Ardiles was also not in that squad.
Wow.
I'll tell you who was in it. Chris Hughton was playing at left back in that game.
Wow.
Steve Archibald was up front. Steve Perryman was captain. And on the bench, Garth Crooks.
I was going to say Garth Crooks.
Garth Crooks and the legend, the late Ray Clements as well, was on the bench, which obviously as Liverpool fans, we absolutely adored that man. But we're going to go into a short break now. We'll talk more about the match in depth. But first, it's time for you to find out where you can get your personalised supplements.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Okay, let's start with the first half as we throw over with an open question to the Manchester United fans here. Credit to you two for turning up. I know, Michal, you're absolutely gutted. You've got the stare of a prime Roberto Baggio after he missed his penalty in '94. I'll throw to you first. The first half was just sort of strange. The first 20 minutes looked really tight. We had a little bit of a review from Marcus there, but I'd like to come to you more in detail. How do you think the teams played in the first half?
Here I'm gonna have. I'm sure I already know that we're gonna have some disagreement with Victor here because I actually like Manchester United style of play. Throughout the entirety of the first half, Victor will disagree with me. I know that already. But there are some
Feel free to interrupt
things.
each other.
Okay, we'll try to keep it civil. So basically, you guys already said it. Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, those guys were basically the heart of Manchester United. We were given the ball by Spurs, so that was obviously their tactic going into the game. Let's let the Red Devils have fun with the ball, and maybe then we'll get them on some quick counter. And besides, that's sort of what happened. But overall, Ben Fernandes, if it wasn't for him, this game would be even more boring, I guess. If somebody weren't entertained by this game already, take Bruno Fernandes out of this equation, and it would be even more boring. I can guarantee you. I really like Mazraoui. He was fighting alongside Amad Diallo. They were fighting for almost every single inch of the pitch out there. Mason Mount, I do not really understand why he was given such a low mark for this game. Only 6.7. Yes, he might have given slightly more to the team, but other than that, he was doing the exact thing that we expect out of every single play on that pitch of the final of the European Cup. Fight. Just put up a fight. If you see that there are 2-3 guys up against you, probably chances are you're going to lose possession, but at least try to make something out of it. I guess the way how we conceded the goal was super accidental. It was sloppy defending. It was just one lapse of concentration, and that was enough for Johnson to punish us for it. And the second half, basically, Ange Postecoglou again, master in tactics.
Hold on,
he decided
I'll
to park the bus.
I'll stop you there for the second half because I'd just like to concentrate on the first half of this moment and more specifically that goal.
Fine.
I know you glossed over the goal a little bit. I'd like to get a bit more from you, Victor. I mean, it was a weird one. I actually thought it was an own goal from Luke Shaw.
It is an own goal. I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying we lacked that quality in the final third, and we had possession. We started well, and I thought, okay, we might go into the second half with a 1-0 lead. And what happened, it was the opposite. And I rewatched the goal 10 times. We're standing. There's no aggression. Mazraoui and obviously Maguire were solid, but for that goal, if you analyze them, they're just walking, especially Mazraoui letting that cross to come in that easily. And then that's a tricky ball that, as a center back, Harry should have attacked that ball and not let it go past him. And that was the big mistake. And in a final like this, that's all you need to lose the final. So, yeah. It comes down to the quality that we don't have up front.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, Victor. Sorry. Wait a minute. What were they supposed to do there? They were just.
You have to attack that ball. No. You have to attack the ball.
They were doing the job. They were marking.
No, they didn't. Harry Maguire has to cut in front of the other guy. I don't know who was there, but you have to cut in there and be a little bit more aggressive. Not let the ball go. That literally went in front of him like that. You have Harry Maguire and you have the goalie. You have to be that first player that's going to cut in and try to cut that ball in, and he let it bounce that in front of the goalie. So that was
so to be clear, from a Manchester United point of view, or from Victor, your point of view, that goal wasn't so much great movement from Johnson and a good ball and a good finish and attack. It was poor defending from Man United.
It was very poor defending. Yeah.
See, I've got to disagree. I thought it was fantastic piece of movement. Nice,
but how easy
really
was the cross? But how easy was the cross is what I'm saying. The cross was perfect because he was let to be alone like that and cross it just that easily. Watch Mazraoui, how slow he goes to the cross. They let the guy cross the ball like there's no urgency in there.
I think it's such a difficult ball to, if you get that in, fair play, you shouldn't have been able to get it in. But the placement of that ball, that danger zone, is so difficult to judge. Do you go for it? Do you not go for it? And that's why, having watched that first half, you could say this is the story of Manchester United losing a final. But props to Spurs. I feel like Spurs won a final. They turned up. They took
100%.
chances.
100%.
Well, I'd say they just parked the bus for the entire second half. We'll get more into that later,
Right,
but I just think
they're super well organized. Something that we should have been crossing those balls.
it was just
defending
anywhere
those
will
crosses.
do. It was, and plus their actual interplay into midfield when they were trying to get out of defense, when they were being pinned back, I thought was very risky. And there were a couple of moments of genius in there, fine, but overall, I thought they were just giving the ball up way too easily. If you look at the actual possession stats, Manchester United had 73% possession over the 90 minutes, and that is just, I think that's a real showing of how poor Spurs were at keeping the ball. They barely touched it for the last 15 minutes. I know that's what they were set up to do, but I barely saw them with the ball at all throughout the entire game. They were playing on the counter-attack.
But that was the plan.
Yeah,
I guess, but Spurs never usually play like that. And if you remember in the first half, if you remember in the first half, they were trying to play it out of the back, and they just kept on giving it away. The midfield weren't coming back to help out. I know it was a relatively changed midfield because they didn't have their usual midfielders available. Kulishevsky and Maddison and Lucas Bergvall. Maybe that's more credit to the players that did step in. Yves Bissouma, I thought, had a pretty good game. But I still think that their win almost felt like a fluke. That's why I disagree with you, Marcus.
That's a natural response when you're winning a final at 1-0. You're gonna pull back pretty much the last 15-20 minutes, and that's when we really pushed.
It's smash and grab. That's all it was.
I think it was well thought out, just because Spurs haven't really played like that all season. It felt very deliberate how they were set up and how they approached the game, and they got the results for it. Because as you rightly said, that Man United midfield, I thought, they looked really good. Ahmad looks really good. Casemiro looks really good. Fernandes, I do feel very sorry for him. He's had a lot of criticism this season, and some of his behaviour, when it comes to things not going his way, has been a bit questionable. But I watched it today and I thought, you know what? He's got every right to be frustrated. The players, he's doing so much, he's creating so much, he's just another level to the players around him. And I did feel really sorry for him for the end of that. But talking about lacking bite in the final third, Højlund was finally hooked in the 71st. Oh no, we'll talk about second half in a minute. That 71st minute. We'll have to talk about that.
No, let's talk about it now. Let's go into the second half. I'll let you land, Marcus. How about that?
I'm curious how the Man United fans are feeling about their attacking options, their attacking threat. I never like to see players, not doing well, and I know that they're professionals and they're trying their very best. I didn't see any belief in anyone that having him up front was going to do anything.
Marcus, let me give you one suggestion of how Manchester United fans might call Rasmus Højlund after this game. Traffic cone.
Yeah.
Well, that's the phrase that you're looking for, Marcus. Traffic cone.
Well, to be honest, Michal, I know we can talk all about Højlund, but there's a player I'd like to come to you with, and this is someone that I thought you were being a little bit harsh on, is Patrick Dorgu, because, he did get subbed off towards the end. 20 years old, by the way. I don't think people realise that. He is a very young player, and he's playing in a major European final. I thought that he coped pretty well for the majority of that match, but you didn't see it the same way, did you?
No, because at some situations, Patrick Dorgu, he was just for his young age, as someone would probably assume. His behaviors were a little bit too erratic. He was behaving a little bit too nervous with the ball, and that ended up in some really technical errors, some mistakes which could have been avoided. But then again, yes, perhaps I am a little too harsh on him, purely based on the fact that he's young and he's still got some ways to go. But with that being said, in such a European final, your opponent will always look for this weak link. And for this weak spot that they can attack, and unfortunately for Man United, Tottenham, I think that for some parts of the game they were actually targeting Patrick Dorgu. They wanted to let him to get the ball so that he makes a mistake, so that they get it back and throw a counterattack.
But
That's how I felt.
Isn't that where Luke Shaw could have been covering him a bit more as well?
Oh my goodness. Well, are we back to how we consider
What did you make of Luke Shaw's performance over the 90 minutes, actually? I'd like to hear that from you.
Out of our 3 centre-backs, the weakest guy in our defence.
Victor?
I mean, if you look at just the own goal that he scored, he also could have reacted a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see Euro for a long time, and then he got into the game and he was very active in the second half. But again, back to Dorgu. Again, that's a 20-year-old kid that you just put into the fire. He was playing for Lecce, and literally Lecce, I don't remember when was the last time Lecce played anywhere in Europe, and then he goes from Lecce right into Man United, and he plays in the final. I mean, I think he had a decent performance. He wasn't as bad as I thought he might be because it's a final. So, but Luke Shaw, yeah, Louis, I agree with you. He should have been closer to him a little bit to support him.
Yeah, he was a bit isolated on the left-hand side, and that's where two of Spurs' best players were on the right-hand side. Brennan Johnson and someone I'd love to highlight, Marcus, Pedro Porro. What a performance from Pedro Porro. He was absolutely solid, and he offered loads going forward. I mean, that is one of the best performances I've ever seen from a right-back in a major final. I mean, obviously, you might have the same opinion.
Yeah, Joe, I have to agree with that. But again, there's a tiny part of me that wants to know where these players have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we talk about Porro, doing what he was doing on the right-hand side, that defence in general, fighting for their lives. That's what you want to see your team do. Van der Ven's clearance from off the line. Where's that Spurs been? Where have those players been?
Well, he's been injured the entire season. That's where he's been.
I particularly enjoyed the ongoing tussle between Maguire and Romero.
That's really sparked up right at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know how Romero escaped without a yellow card in that match. By the way,
Argentinian. Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
plus they were throwing a lot of rubbish down Maguire's throat, really, because like from the slow motion, you could actually read the lips of Romero saying like, "You're okay, I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to replace it with rubbish player. You're a rubbish player. Rubbish player. Shut up." Yeah.
Hey, my teammates here at the club, they sent like a link from that clearance, Van der Ven, and they're asking me to do that clearance the next game. I was like, come on, I'm 40 years old. I'm not going to do that. I'm not trying
that. You don't look it, Victor.
I'm not trying that.
I think Michal's aged about 40 years during the watch of this final as well.
Oh, he's jumping. It might be another 40 years to Man United win something.
Oh, that would be good, wouldn't it? Especially, well, let's not go too far into it because I don't want to. I want to actually have a podcast that I can upload. Another highlight I'd like to mention from Spurs. I mean, we know that they were pinned back for the entire game, but what Heung-min Son, when he came on, offered absolutely nothing. Where is this Heung-min Son gone? I know he had his hands on the trophy at the end and, getting all the plaudits, but it's been an awful season, I think, for Heung-min Son and Spurs in general. But Michal, he's just a shadow of his former self, isn't he? We speak about him being the captain and one of probably the greatest Asian player ever. What happened?
Yeah, what happened? Well, basically, number one, age is getting to him. That is the most important factor. But also, I wouldn't knock too much on Heung-min Son on the back of like last night's performance, because we have to go back to what Ange Postecoglou's plan was for the game. Do not open too much. Let Manchester United have the ball. Let them suffer. Let them throw as many crosses and as many shots as they can. And they're not even going to get one because they lack finishing in the final third, as Victor said. So Heung-min Son's task for the final was completely different for those last... because, let's keep that in mind. He was introduced in the 67th minute, and the only reason he was introduced was because of Richarlison's injury.
But what about Matthijs Tel?
Matthias Tell. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then again, like we have to go back to the original plan. Son's job was to reinforce the midfield so that Man United has an even the biggest nightmare possible to somehow try to get that equalizer. So I wouldn't knock too much on Son. I think that he
Fine.
wasn't supposed to be the star of last night. But
Yeah.
but I can tell you who is the star from Tottenham Hotspur, and that is
I
now
know who you
Mr.
mean.
Kevin Danso. He is the
Oh.
star for Tottenham Hotspur for the second half, in my opinion.
What?
Wow, yeah, he came on, and I always get a bit worried
12
when
minutes he played.
a team that is winning needs to defend a lead, and they bring on a fresh defender and change things up because. Okay, Man United were throwing everything at Spurs, but Spurs were coping, and I did think, oh, you're about to throw him into, the fire pit, and he's not ready for it, and very much proved wrong. A fantastic headed clearance in between the two United attackers. I can't remember who he was defending against, but looked really solid and looked hungry. Again, you've got players all of a sudden looked like they were, yeah, we're going to win this. We're going to see this over the line. And you could kind of feel that tension in the stadium through your television. You could look at Man United fans in the 70th minute and they knew there's no goal coming. There's no way. And you could just see, I was waiting for that moment where the Spurs thing was going to happen and it never happened.
Yeah, well,
I remember
you
looking
were
at
having
the. I remember looking at the TV's 87 minutes. I was like, "There's no way we're gonna lose this." And then I'm thinking, "Okay, yeah, we don't have the players to score."
I'd like to
bottom
ask
line.
you something else, Victor, actually,
Yeah.
about a substitution from a Manchester United perspective. And this is someone who came on and really looked like he could change the game, a certain Alejandro Garnacho.
Yeah.
Do you think he was brought on too late?
Yes, I would have brought him in at halftime. I honestly thought it's gonna be that he's gonna start as a false nine. I did not expect Højlund to start. I thought Amorim's gonna have a joker up his sleeve, and it's gonna be Garnacho that's gonna start as a false nine. Even Kobe Maino, to be honest, just not Højlund. That's my view.
Victor to ventriloquist, ladies and gentlemen. That's the word.
Well, it was nice to see Joshua Zirkzee come on towards the end because this is someone who worked so hard to get back. He was not meant to play for the rest of the season. And he came on off the bench, didn't offer too much in terms of what he brought into the game. Did it just feel sentimental, maybe, and, not something that was ever going to change the game?
Do you know, I think that it highlighted an overall feeling. We talked about this a few weeks ago on this podcast, that this Manchester United team, this Manchester United squad, in any other moment in history, you would not put those players, no disrespect to them, in Manchester United shirts. It's not a Manchester United squad. It's in serious need of a rebuild. They're great players, but I don't think they're of the quality of the players Man United have had in the past. So it just shows the lack of options they've got. If you look at that 11 that started, how many of them do you even expect really to still be there next season? That's quite something to say of a team that's reached a cup final. I'm curious from the Manchester United fans' point of view, because as Michal pointed out, there's not really money to spend. How do you rebuild? Do you trust this squad? At the end of the day, they've reached the final. They will learn from this, they'll grow. Or do you go, well, actually, this team is not good enough to kick on?
They're not good enough. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Absolutely, they're not good enough. And to be honest, the victory for the Europa League final victory for Man United, I actually read an article somewhere that even if we got this £100 million bonus for the victory, it would still be thrown into the well, dug from the debts, as we say it here. But still, even without £100 million being given, that we would be able to throw into that hole in our budget, it's going to be even worse because we're going to have to sell players, and I'm afraid the Man United board will be forced to take decisions in terms of letting go of the players that will be drastic. I am afraid, to be honest, right now, like with billions of pounds of debt that we've got and that we're in, I'm afraid for Kobe Mainoo's tenure. I am afraid for Garnacho's tenure. I am afraid that Bruno Fernandes, like he might be too expensive to be kept at the club, even though he's a fantastic player, and he just doesn't have any friends to play with, unfortunately. So
I don't think it's gonna come down to that. I think if you find a way to offload Anthony, Sancho, and Rashford, and they had decent seasons in the clubs where they were loaned out, if that happens and they sign with them permanently, I think we're gonna be fine because that's a lot of money that they keep.
Financial fair play, Victor. Financial fair play.
You have to offload those players that make that much money, and now it's pretty clear that you have to get rid of Casemiro as well.
But that's not going to fix the problem.
Bicycle kick at the end.
It's not going to
Let's
fix
talk
the
about
problem,
that.
100%. But it will give you new players to bring in.
But we have no money to bring them for.
We're gonna have money if you offload those players.
Michal.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
You're gonna have the money to bring those new players in if you offload those. If you get rid of Højlund, if you get rid of Onana, if you get rid of Dalo, Zirkzee. The main thing is how much money these guys that Ten Hag brought in. They're making 150, 200,000 a week. That's the issue.
I think the other thing is for Manchester United, it's not going to be quick. I think you're going to have to strap in for a long run back to the top, to kind of consolidate the finances, build that squad, and the issue as well of can you attract players of the quality you need to a club that isn't in the Champions League, that didn't win the Europa League, that is in the bottom half of the table, and it's going to be some serious work. Who's going to want to go to Manchester United?
That's a good question.
And
Mateus
or
Cunha,
do you just get on with who you've got and make the best of this squad as it is? Because it's a young squad. There's lots of potential there. If you keep Kobe Mainoo, where could he go? And you got all these
Amad Diallo as well.
Yeah, but it's
I'll tell you right now, they're not gonna go anywhere. Diallo is for sure not gonna go anywhere.
Hopefully,
he doesn't strike me as the type as well. I mean, it depends. I suppose again, Victor, as you mentioned, on what money you can get in the transfer window, because how much are you going to get for Marcus Rashford, for example? Maybe quite a lot. He can bring a lot, and he does strike me as a player who could go for a lot of money. The problem is how much Manchester United players that are currently there are getting paid. Way, way, way too much money.
That's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about how much money you can sell Rashford for. You just need to get rid of him because how much money he makes a week. That's the issue.
Yeah, it's an
they
insane
make way
amount.
too much money for the players that they are. Him, Anthony, Sancho. Those are the three players you have to get rid of to find a way to offload them. If you can find a buyer again back to Italy for Højlund and Zirkzee, that will be amazing too.
Yeah,
So it's interesting thinking about, Tottenham have won this trophy now. They will play Champions League football. And for all the protests about Levy out, they've not spent big. They've not spent particularly high on wages. They've invested in their stadium. He has had, ENIC have had a business plan for how they want to run Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah. And now also, I talked about this on the pod before, if you go into the detail of what the Levy out protests are about, they're not saying get rid of Levy. They're saying, go back office and do that side of stuff. We like that you regenerate the stadium and you bring money in, but you should leave the football stuff alone. But he's got to be feeling a little bit justified right now. The business model's paying off.
Well, Marcus, I'll ask you this then. Would you say overall this season has been a success for Tottenham Hotspur?
Yes.
It's a yes
instantly
for me too.
Yes, not a moment of hesitation.
Same for me.
Yes.
So it's an ongoing battle argument about this whole thing of like, should any team that's won the Europa League be given a Champions League place? The fact of the matter is that is the rule. We don't expect that teams in the bottom half of their league are going to reach finals.
Well, I don't disagree with that rule. I'm just saying the way they've played this season. I mean, you can say what you want about they've won the league, but, the football that they'll be playing in the Champions League, where can we see that? Because this whole system with Ange, I wouldn't say has been a success. I mean, they had a pretty easy run to the final as well. I mean, this has been quite an easy Europa League season. They have Bodo Glimt in the semi-final, for goodness sakes. But I know you can say what you want, that they won it, but they will struggle if they don't seriously reinvest. They've got a trophy, fantastic, good for them. But they cannot play like this again next season with a congested fixture list of not being able to rotate their players in Europa League nights, trips to Azerbaijan or whatever. I just think that this won't be enough for challenging for, finishing higher in the Premier League, going on a cup run and getting anything out of the Champions League at all. I can't see a world in which in the next 2 years they will be back to where they were in 2019 in a Champions League final with a fantastic squad. They're going to have to move on Heung-min Son sooner rather than later.
Do you know what?
He's not going to be sustainable. Go on, sorry.
I disagree. I think it could be the start of something pretty special for them because they've got the prize packet from this. They can now say, unlike other teams in the league, do you know what? We're playing Champions League football next year. They can attract players. They seem to be making an awful lot of money from that stadium with all the concerts and things that they do there. Yeah. If they're smart with their investment, the issue has always been to attract the big players, you need to be winning trophies. Well, they've won a trophy. There's going to be a huge debate in North London today about who's had the most successful season. As far as I can tell, both teams, Arsenal and Tottenham, have qualified for the Champions League, but one of them's got silverware. In my mind, Spurs have had a better season. I know, Arsenal have challenged and played some great football, but I've got, they've won silverware. At the end of the day, in 10-20 years' time, your children aren't going to say, "Oh, do you remember that season where Arsenal played some great football and finished second?" They're not.
Make a good point there. You do make a very good point.
Yeah, nobody remembers second place. Yeah, that is a well-known rule. Absolutely.
But it's an interesting point for Spurs now because that model seems to have got them to where they are right now. Will it get them over the line for the next phase? But they're in a good place. They've got silverware, they've got Champions League, they've got money in the bank. They could start moving up.
It just depends on their transfers, doesn't it? This Spurs team is nowhere near as good as that 2019 one. No. You're right, they won a trophy, but I just...
Okay,
I think there's a little bit of a misconception here with the Champions League. I gotta say this, that if you make it to the Champions League, certain players will come to you. If I offer 150,000 and I'm not in the Champions League, and the Champions League team offers you 100K, would you go take the 150 or are you gonna take 100
all day?
That's what I'm saying. United, they're bigger clubs. They're not in the Champions League, but they can have the payroll if you clear up garbage players like the one that I mentioned, Anthony, Sancho, Rashford.
But also, do you know what the prize money is for winning the Europa League final? Someone take a guess. Guesses right now. Nearest to the nearest million.
I heard that in general, with everything all added together, it was something ridiculous, like 100 million. I don't know where that figure is brought in, but I think the actual figure is something like 7.
Any other guesses, boys? Victor?
No.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Michal.
I want to hear the difference between the first and the second. How much did Man United make?
Okay, Michal,
and how much?
Okay, to be honest, I've heard of that number 100 million a lot. Apparently, it's wrong. So let's hear it.
5 million.
5 million. There you go.
5 million.
5.6. I seem to remember reading 5.6.
Oh, I just saw on. I can't say the name of the newspaper, but a reliable newspaper source that it was 5 million. So, that big cash flow to spend on the big players, 5 million, great. I suppose the plus side is being able to pay more with financial fair play. And that is something that a lot of teams have been bragging about that have made it to the Champions League. But I suppose, where will it go? They're not going to get a load of money for being in the Champions League. The money comes within their own investment. So let's just see how bold Daniel Levy will be with that money.
I don't think it'll be particularly
One
bold.
second, for everyone listening, just to confirm this. It's 5 million just from the final. What is the total package compared when you take the Champions League and everything else?
I don't know that, but I said
that should be a lot of money. It cannot be like 5 or 10. That's probably the 100 million that you're talking about.
Yeah, that was the
everyone knows
100
about.
million, which was then reported to be thrown into like this pit with debt, because like if United had won, then this 100 million would just go to go for the servicing of the debts.
but 5
for Man
million is
United.
nothing to these guys.
Yeah.
Is it?
Absolutely no. It is. It's nothing to these guys. So they spent 75 million on Anthony.
Perhaps. So, you know what?
80 million on Maguire.
So if that's not a problem, then how come we already started there are already rumors spreading about financial fair play violations by Manchester United? We could end up in the same ditch as Manchester City.
But that comes with your budget for being in the Champions League, if that's what you're talking about. But you can still sell players. No one's stopping you doing that.
And yet nothing happened to City, so don't worry, we'll survive.
Well, see.
Yet. The verdict's not in yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting one. I think that one's dragged on because there are so many charges for them to. These was 115, and that's why it's taken so long to get to the end of that. But I mean, that's an entirely different discussion.
I just want a live update of what's going on rather than hearing, the court is continuing. Like, just tell us what's happening. I don't want to find out in 10 years by the time all of these players are grey.
You know how this is going to end? Only Everton's going to get deducted 10 points. City will be fine.
Yeah, they're going to find a scapegoat. You know what, guys? I think if we continue with these conversations about the future of the club and where Man United goes, then I might drop another accidental F-bomb, and I don't want to do that anymore.
That didn't happen, don't worry. We'll end it on the beautiful note of Everton getting punished. Thank you very much for listening to the daily English Premier League podcast on GSPN. Of course, we've got 2 other major finals happening, one of them with a Premier League club, and of course, we have one more game week and a trophy lift for Liverpool. I'll be up in Anfield for that. I'll be up in Liverpool with the parade, and that will be a lot contrasting to the current moods of Michal and Viktor. Thank you for getting on anyway, boys. I appreciate you being here, and Marcus, grateful to have your company once again. You've been listening to Daily English Premier League Podcast. Take care. See you soon. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.